computer. Okay, so Erev Tov, we're here tonight at the weekly shira in the Dvar Malchus of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. It's the culmination of the 24th of Iyar, the month of healing, and the 24th, which is the day in Tehillim that we read the chapters of Hallel. So it's a time that we praise and we give tishbachos to Hashem. And the moment that Hashem hears our praise, so He promises us that He will respond, and it should be on the good and revealed basis with these goals of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. Going back many years ago, with the story of this week, so the Frierdiker Rebbe arrived in the United States at the beginning of the 1940s, and then the United States did not look the way it looks today. To go and to be an observant Jew, to go and to be able to show your observance in public was something that was not that common. And in general, the newcomers, the greenhorns that came, for them to be able to go and to start a new life and to have parnasa, to have livelihood, it was very difficult because what was required, at least in regard to those that were running the shops and the factories, was that people should work on Shabbos, Rahman Litzlan. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, the factor of the way the person looks. A person with a beard, a yarmulke, it was unheard of. People didn't want to have salesmen that looked like people had just got off the boat from Europe. Nevertheless, the Frierdiker Rebbe came and he expressed the famous saying, "America is nicht anders." America is not different. In other words, a Jew can live an observant and Hasidic life in his home and outside, observant of all the laws of the Torah, regardless of the fact that we find ourselves in the United States. And so the first thing that the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, sought to do was to establish yeshivas. He was told, listen, this is not like the old home. Young men don't sit and study all day. They go to school. They go afterwards to university, to college. They're looking. Their parents want them are interested in making sure that they have a profession. Against all the odds, the Frierdiker Rebbe went and he opened up the yeshiva. The first day that the Frierdiker Rebbe came, he told Rabbi Jacobson to open up the yeshiva, gather boys, Bachrim, and to open yeshiva in 770. It was not exactly 770 then, but in Brooklyn. Later on, and this is a story that is told by one of the secretaries of the Rebbe, Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, Rabbi Groner, told this story. Later on in Tafshin Vav, that was 1946. So the Frierdiker Rebbe asked to gather Bachrim, and there were, I believe, 6 Bachrim that were gathered to go and to establish a yeshiva in Chicago. Okay? Chicago also is not what it is today, but nevertheless, Chicago is well known as Chicago. Okay, amongst those Bachrim that were chosen was also Rabbi Groner, who later on, as we know, became the present Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, his secretary. But then he was sent as a Bachur to sit and to study, to establish yeshiva in Chicago. When they arrived in Chicago, they were greeted with a staff of great Talmidei Chachamim, very learned rabbis that were the staff of the yeshiva. Amongst them was a rabbi called Rabbi Yosef Flyer. Rabbi Yosef Flyer was outstanding in regard to the fact that he also, amongst the great knowledge that he had, he knew the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ksuvim, the Torah, the prophets, and the scriptures by heart, inside out. He knew to quote anywhere in the prophets and the scriptures with commentaries, like it's more common today that people might know to rattle off parts of the davening of Shacharis, Mincha, and Ma'ariv. But this was Rabbi Flyer of then. This was Rabbi Flyer of then. The Frierdiker Rebbe made a request that the boys, even though it was not something that was common then. Usually in Tom Chitmim, the boys learned Nigla and Chassidus. They learned the Talmud and they learned Hasidic philosophy. But the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe that sent them, also asked that they learn every day a regular class with Rabbi Flyer of Tanakh, of the Nevi'im and Ksuvim. And Rabbi Grona says that the experience of hearing him and hearing the commentaries on the Nevi'im, the Ksuvim, was an incredible experience. But beyond his knowledge of the Tanakh and so on, he also had something very valuable up his sleeve. The first visit that the Frierdiker Rebbe made to the United States, he also visited Chicago. It's called in Hebrew Bikor Chicago. There's even a booklet that was printed up with the basic things that went on during the time that the Frierdiker Rebbe was here and when he was visiting in Chicago. From the time that the Rebbe arrived in Chicago, the Rabbi Flyer made it his business to be literally with the Rebbe at every single step of the way. And so he also heard and he saw different stories and different miracles that occurred at the time, of which Rabbi Flyer said that this following story is such a great story. It's a story that no one is allowed to miss, because it's not just a miracle story, but it also has a very important rule that we have to learn about the Rebbeim in general, and what the instructions of the Rebbeim, Rabbi Seinu Nesienu, our rabbis, our leaders, have when they give an instruction to an individual, to a chassid, or to many chassidim, let alone many chassidim. And this was the story that Rabbi Flyer told. He said that when the Frierdiker Rebbe came, so there was a chassid, a very well-to-do chassid, and despite the fact that he was a chassid, his son, as many in those days, got caught up with the Zionist movement, and they became very much connected. It was just in the times of the founding of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and therefore it became like a sort of total distraction, which drew the youth away, even though they knew that being together with this type of movement would detract from their observance of the Torah and the study of the Torah, the observance of the mitzvahs and the study of the Torah. Nevertheless, such was also the case with the son of this chassid. And the chassid spoke to his son, and he said that it's not appropriate, and how can he go and walk in such a path? But not only did he get connected with the Zionism, but he also wanted to make a decision to pick up and leave to live in Eretz Yisrael, to live in Israel. The father was very moved by the decision, and he said, "Listen, you know what? The Rebbe is here. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson is here now in Chicago. Come together, and we'll ask him what he thinks about it." He got very angry, to say the least, because he knew the opinion of the Frierdiker Rebbe in regard to Zionism in general and the whole concept of Israel at that time. It was something that was not. It was not considered to be a kosher environment, to say the least. Oh, Rabbi Yamin, Shalom Aleichem. And so And so the father said, listen, so I'll be going into Yechidus by the Rebbe, by the Rav Yosef Yitzchak, and I'll ask him, what about my son leaving to Eretz Yisrael? And he also got even more angry, and he said to his father that he shouldn't get involved in his private business, and it's his life that he's living, and he should by no he should by no means go and ask the Rebbe about his trip to Israel. Okay, a father is a father, and he had Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe, and when he went in, he asked the Rebbe what he should do with his son that wants to go to Israel. The Rebbe showed a very serious face at the time, and he said, tell your son that now is not the time to go to Eretz Yisrael. It seems to be very simple. Now is not the time. Great. The father went back home and he saw his son and he said, listen, I was in Yechidus and I asked the Rebbe anyway, and the Rebbe said that now is not the time to go to Eretz Yisrael. The son got even more angrier because he already instructed him to his father. He instructed his father specifically not to ask the Rebbe and not to get involved. And now he already asked the Rebbe. So the father said, but the Rebbe already answered, so what are you going to do? The son was it was a very big action. He was very stubborn. And he told his father that he's going to leave on the boat. Then they were traveling with boats. It wasn't with planes. He's going to be leaving on a boat as he planned to Eretz Yisrael. The father was very dismayed, but what could he do? The son packed his bags. He got on the boat. A few days after the boat left shore, so a terrible piece of news was brought back to the mainland, that the boat with all its passengers sunk in the ocean, with something like 457 passengers. The father was shocked, but what is he to do? He sat Shiva on his son. After he finished sitting Shiva, so he immediately, when he got up, he went back to the Rebbe, who was still there in Chicago, and he got into Yechidus, and he asked the Rebbe a very simple question. He said, Rebbe, I don't understand. If you knew that the ship with all the 457 passengers was going to sink, so why didn't you tell me in advance? Why didn't you tell me? If my son knew that the ship was going to sink, so perhaps he would take it differently. He wouldn't have gotten on the ship. But what about all the others, the passengers that could have been saved? And at this, the Frierdiker Rebbe again became very serious. And then he looked at the father with very passionate eyes, and he said, you should know one thing. When we are told things, we are not told exactly with the understanding of why we are meant to say what we say. But we know that we are supposed to pass on what we receive from above. Whatever we receive from above, we pass on to those that are supposed to be recipients. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe said, and this is the bottom line, then the Frierdiker Rebbe said, and you should know one thing, that when we say something that we receive from above, we know definitely that the bottom line is, as mizot, darf man firnzach. When we say whatever we say has to be fulfilled. Whatever we give over has to be observed. In other words, the Rebbe didn't know what's going to happen with the ship, what's going to happen with the passengers of the ship. But he knew one thing. The question was, what should he tell his son? What should his son do in regard to his traveling to Eretz Yisrael? The Rebbe thought, and he received from above, now is not the time for your son to travel. without any pshetlach, why it's not the time, who's not the time, where's not the time. He's not supposed to travel now. His neshama is not supposed to be on that boat. What can we do? That people have bechira chofshis. People have freedom to choose. And once a person has the freedom to choose, if they can hear what the Rebbe says and choose otherwise. And this is sadly the story in regard to this person's son. But it teaches us in a positive vein, in a optimistic vein, that when we receive instructions from the Rebbe, so we're meant to follow the instructions to the letter, to the T, without any exceptions. And we're not supposed to go and say, well, maybe the Rebbe meant here, maybe the Rebbe meant there, maybe the Rebbe didn't mean. We're not meant to do calculations in regard to the instructions that the Rebbe gives. And so also in regard to Mashiach and Geula, people say, well, maybe we're supposed to go into prepare the world for Mashiach and Geula, but it doesn't mean we should go and put the Rebbe's picture on billboards and say, Mashiach is here. Oh, let's go out to greet him. Even though those were the times in 91, 92, 93, these were the instructions that the Rebbe gave. And it was very clear. And it's still very clear with nothing that changed. This is what the Rebbe tells us, and this is what we're meant to do. And this is the way we prepare ourselves and we prepare our environment, the entire world, to greet Moshiach Tzidkenu on a good and revealed basis with happiness and joy of the heart, b'teva nir v'nigla, on a good and revealed basis, and in a manner of peace and tranquility of the mind and heart. And it should be teichef umyad mamish, immediately now. Yechi Adonenu, Moreinu v'Rabbeinu, HaMelech Ha'Moshiach li'olam v'ed.